Hello and welcome. Well, when we look back retrospectively at the levels of eager and enthusiastic lovemaking pre-baby to what happens after a baby is born, there understandably is a significant contrast between the two. The levels of passion in the bedroom go from one extreme to the other, with sleep deprivation end up being the biggest anti-aphrodisiac of all, leaving you looking at your bed longing to be able to sleep undisturbed in it. The many changes in your relationship start with the sole focus on the baby and its health and well-being, understandably. So, understandably, the shift in your relationship, along with the hormonal changes a woman's body goes through, can mean the couples easily lose their mojo for a while. Now, to help talk to us about how you can get yours back, we welcome our special guest, Dr. Janet Hall, a parenting expert, a sex coach, hypnotherapist, and author of 15 books and 17 audio recordings on this subject alone. Now, for the last 40 years, Dr. Jan has regularly featured in the media, on television and radio, and she's authored another 8 parenting books and 54 audios and ebooks in total, which is just incredible. Now, so today, Dr. Jan is going to share with us when and how you can reignite your sex life after a baby is born. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Jan. How are you?
I'm very well and very excited to be able to share this subject, which far too often tends to be taboo. So it's great to just get everybody acknowledging how important it really is.
Couldn't agree with you anymore. So before we get stuck into all the questions that I do want to ask you with your 40 years experience in this subject, I just wanted to address that we had published your article titled When and How to Reignite Your Sex Life After a Baby is Born. Now, for someone who hasn't read the article yet, can you please tell us what it's about and what inspired you to write it?
What inspired me is the many clients that I've seen over the years who come in about a year after the baby is born and say that they're very foolish. They feel foolish. They are angry, perhaps one with the other. Typically the man is angry with the wife. Basically, a year later, they're still not having sex. And when we say sex, we're not just talking about penis in vagina. We are talking about intimacy and sharing that wonderful quality that makes it all worthwhile. So, it's a really serious challenge. And medically minded people will just say things as it's foolish, again, is the word, in that, oh, well, you can have sex after 6 weeks. Well, let me tell you that very rarely happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's sort of get stuck into all of these questions. And as mentioned earlier, you do have 40 years experience on the subject as a sex therapist. So what can you tell us about your experience with helping parents of new babies then?
Well, because I'm positioned very much as a sex therapist, people come to me through the internet mostly nowadays. Often through GPs because of the Medicare rebate situation, which is fabulous, even now for telehealth. But they are really at some kind of, we wouldn't want to say a crisis point, but they need direction, that they're stuck.
Okay. So what, I guess, are some of the most common challenges that you parents face with the intimacy post-birth then?
Well, it's sort of different from the man's point of view to the woman's point of view. So can I take first of all, let's take the man's point of view, because everything has changed. Well, it's actually changed for both of them. But for the man, it's absolutely like, well, I have all this time on my hands, and I would like to get my hands on you. And there she is. There she is sitting there. This was me, Rachel. I had 2 children, and I remember sitting there 3 o'clock in the afternoon with a flannelette dressing gown on, with the egg yolk still on the front from when you had brekkie.
Very attractive, Dr. Jan. Very attractive.
Yeah, no, not a good look. And this is this is the reality of what it's like for her. Being the primary giver. I just wanted to also say it's interesting that with COVID having so many downsides, one of the upsides is that the other partner has been able to be at home. I've loved seeing the men in the park. We're just down from Edinburgh Gardens in North Fitzroy, and the men in the park pushing the pusher, and that new mum is home, hopefully with their feet up and having a bit of a nod off.
Yeah.
So anyway, going back to what he has to put up with, he's used to being first,
Yeah.
and you know how the male ego likes to be stroked, and then suddenly it's not about him.
Yes.
Um, and deep down, he might be thinking, well, there is egg on her flannelette, but she's the only woman in the room, and I really do have a bit of an itch to scratch, and somehow or other I've got to get wired up again, because she looks so tired and emotional and worn out, and the baby's crying, and but he still has his urges. What my mother would have said, man has his needs. Now I'm not saying that I agree with all this. I'm just saying that this is the line of thought.
This is the reality.
That
Yes.
goes, that goes along.
So what is the physical reality of intimacy post-birth then?
Well, the medicos will say that after 6 weeks you're fit to trot. However, I think it very much depends on what sort of a pregnancy and birth
Of
that
course.
the woman had, because if it's been so uncomfortable the whole time, maybe there's been an emergency, maybe there's been a crisis. She may have had episiotomy stitches, which can be very uncomfortable, and even as I at the last minute had to have 2 cesareans. Well, the first one I didn't know I was having, and the second one was of course necessary. That your pelvic floor actually can become overstretched, and so it's not as easy as you think. So at 6 weeks also, it must be a very old statistic really to say 6 weeks. I can't imagine being only with my new baby 6 weeks and feeling sexy.
Again.
If I'm breastfeeding or very keen to, which is hugely stressful if it doesn't go easily, and if it is going easily, the hormones have all changed.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got your oxytocin, which is your touching, hugging drug.
Your love hormone. Yep.
You don't have your sexy hormone within cooee. So
So why is it important then to take things slowly and gently again? I mean, and how can the decision to start too early cause more problems and can cause more problems internally for women?
Well, I'm not the medical doctor, Rachel, but surely it's going to cause injuries. I'm an expert sex therapist, and one of my really compassionate issues is called vulvodynia or vaginismus, and that's when it can just be a mental thought. It doesn't have to actually be because of an experience, but if you have had a physical trauma, you're not going to put your hand up for sex for a long, long time. The pelvic floor becomes like a little police station, and it's not going to open up and allow the vagina to stretch and expand. So trying to have sex when you have any resistance is only going to make it even worse as time goes on.
Yes.
So you have to take it slowly.
So, I mean, so the birth naturally can leave scarring, and the cesarean can cause a lot of stress on the pelvic floor overall. But if a woman has had a cesarean section, should she wait until she's fully recovered to have intercourse again? And if so, why? Why is that so important for the body?
What, the cesarean? Well, let me tell you, it's pretty hard to walk for a few weeks. You're doubled over. And I guess you would have to be, here's one of the important takeaways from this. After you've had a child, lubrication is your best friend. So as long as there's lots and lots of lube, and the guy does put time into making her feel good with his hands, which is some kind of a massage. Not all women like, like a traditional massage, but you know what? The one that I absolutely loved was having my face stroked like that. That can just put me immediately into a, yes, what would you like now zone.
So,
The other thing is position. Um, you certainly, if you've had a cesarean, you don't want your man on top of you heaving up and down. So better off to do a spooning with the leg over. But once again, the man really has to put some attention into making her pink bits swollen, engorged, ready. Use the lube to help out. Men often don't know where they're allowed to touch anymore. If he touches her breast and he drips, he gets milk squirted all over him. It's like, well, hang on, that's not very sexy.
They didn't do that before.
No.
So, I mean, medically, do you need to have a doctor to give you the all clear before sort of reigniting your sex life again?
I don't know what they're saying now about that. It's been so long ago. My children are 40 and 38. I think that, everybody who's having their first child should check that out with the GP as part of their, pre-birth education.
Yes. So definitely if something
Mm.
doesn't feel right, it is very important to check up and see your GP, of course, if your
Yes,
body
and
doesn't feel
if
right
it's continuing to give you pain, you must see maybe even a gynecologist
as well.
and get to the bottom of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned breastfeeding before too. So I understand that if a woman is breastfeeding, then it can take more time for her libido to return than it would if she isn't breastfeeding. Is
Hmm.
this because breastfeeding keeps the estrogen levels low? Is that the reason why?
Certainly, it's not just estrogen, I think, but it's certainly the hormonal bank. That oxytocin, the nurturing of the baby breast, the Mona Lisa smile on her face, when she, it's the most dreamy trance, really. As a hypnotherapist, I recall that, and time kind of stands still too. So that's all a good thing. So, and yet, nowadays we have no rights or wrongs about breastfeeding, and you should do what works for you and what works for your baby.
And I mean, are there any other hormonal changes that can make a woman unresponsive at all?
Well, there's no lubrication of her vagina. Now, you don't have to be lubricated. It's best to be lubricated if you're going to have intercourse. But when you lubricate, when you get aroused, there are other things happening. And so your hormones need to be cooperative for those other things to happen. One of the things that has to happen is that the vagina actually tense. The internal organs, the stomach and the womb, will sort of be lifted up by the tent, and the vagina expands. So all of this depends on hormonal reactivity, and it may not be possible for 6 months, much less 6 weeks.
Yeah. And I mean, when there has been maybe a larger gap in time, or irrespective of how long that gap in time has been since a couple has had
Mm.
sex, it may feel
Hmm.
awkward to start up again. So, what advice do you
Mm.
have for them to strengthen their intimate bond again?
Well, let's just take one step back though and go that let's look at how long it's been since they've had sex, because pre-birth, everybody's different. But in my practice, I remember the man who was sex phobic as his woman grew with baby in her tummy, and it was like
That's common. Is that common?
this is a national treasure that I am responsible for, and I don't want to cause any upset to this child. And so a woman might come in saying, I was really horny at about the sixth what's it called, trimester, but he didn't even want to come near me, and it's been a year, and now I'm horny again, and now it's all about him and the baby. So, it depends what's happening, how much sex you were having before, what sort of sex you were having before, how easy it was then, because, some people do exist on very awkward sex for a long time. That's why they need to come and see a sex therapist to learn how to relax into it.
Hmm.
So once we take into that, let's look at what it was like before. Now, how do we get started again? The ideal way is the massages. Can I tell you one of my favorite techniques?
I would love to hear about it.
Right. Now, this actually goes back for all the women who are listening who some women never even have massages. They feel vulnerable. They won't even have a sports massage. But I want those women to ask themselves, when I do have a massage, do I have my legs apart? Men get in there with the masseur at the table and legs go flopping like this. And women, it's almost like that ladylikeness about us. And so simply by laying on our tummy naked with our legs apart for our male partner to begin to massage using a really good, say, avocado or almond oil from the whole food, shop, just feeling vulnerable like that and knowing that this is your lover, this is the man that you trust and who thinks that you're a goddess, is a wonderful way to start. But it's not, yes, you might also want the massage where you're sitting between his feet watching telly and he gives you a head massage or a shoulder massage, and that's more about love. And this is something else I want to bring up too that not everybody knows about, but the 5 love languages. You know about them, Rachel, don't you?
I've heard about them, but yeah.
Okay, so this was invented by Gary Chapman, an American, and I actually think in Australia, most of us are not that keen on the 5th one, which is gifts. And when we're talking about pregnancy and then after having the baby, we're not talking about gifts. So let's park that one. Oh, though I always like to say, when I went to America to a big mall for the very first time, Hallmark cards was as big as Bunnings because it was gifts. And that's where he got that from. But the other 4 love languages are crucially important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, no. No. Let's say the other one, which is my husband's and my favorite one, quality time.
Yes,
You're not going to get much quality. You're not going to get much quality time. So sitting between his legs watching telly is a good time to call that quality time. But the other 3 are crucial.
Yes.
And so one of them is called acts of service.
Mm-hmm.
That is doing something, taking the initiative to do something to help the other person. Now, this is where the guy can step into his stride. Read her mind, anticipate her needs. It's not easy for some people. Acts of service is actually my lowest one before gifts. Every now and again, my husband gets grumpy with me and I think, ooh, I'm not doing enough around the house.
I think it's a great exercise for couples to sit down and actually work out this between them so they can understand how the other person likes to receive attention and love as well, because you may think, I'm doing one thing and it's not actually making any difference on the other end. So
no, you have to talk the other one's love language. So you can just go online and download the test and do it, now, whatever stage you're at, it's never too late to learn. So his acts of service, her words of affirmation. But she needs to keep telling him. She's not going to tell him he's a hunk of spunk and, like she can't wait to be in bed with him because she's just too busy. But she can say how much she loves him, how much she depends on him, how he is her rock. Because the man might feel rejected if she's just focused on the baby all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's a words of affirmation man, he will need that. But then there is also the touch, just as I love this. Find out, what does your man love? He might like just the hand on the shoulder. He might like a special kiss on the side of his mouth rather than a full-on pash. So learn what it is that he needs for him to feel good about you touching him.
Mm-hmm. And is one of the most positive approaches just patience and understanding in general?
You betcha. Yes, from both people. I actually also think that the couple have to do whatever they can to have turns sleeping. When I was having my children, men still would not change nappies or get up in the middle of the night to burp the baby or feed the baby. Thank goodness that's in the olden days now. So you might both be wrung out and tired. So even if it's just an hour, and even if you're not really asleep, find one of somebody's meditation audios, but just laying down in a bed that's not your bed and not the baby's room, maybe with some oils, burning oils, and the dimmed light for an hour. It's going to rejuvenate you in a way that, if you just keep going and going and going at it, you're just going to burn all your batteries.
Yes. And I mean, understanding that there are so many changes, I mean, how can couples find new ways to express their physical attraction and affection again?
I like, because I'm a wordsmith, having written all those books. For those people who are good at words, fantasize together. That could be very horny, or it could be very funny. Now, you can fantasize about things that you have done in the past. Remember the time, you came in the door, you say to your man, and you told me to just throw some sexy things in a case, some high heels, and you took me to the Hyatt. And we didn't even go out to dinner. We just had room service. And remember when we showered together? So you're really recalling that fabulous, romantic, sexy time. And then another option, of course, is to make it up. Imagine if. And
And
people who are good with words can do that, but see, not everybody can do that.
yes. So for the people that are not, what can they do then?
They can read erotic literature to each other. You might need to suss each other out. Like, for instance, the what's it called again? The 50 Shades of Grey just made me laugh. But there's so much erotica that you can find online. So find what you like and read that to each other. What else could you do?
Well, I mean,
Make up a little fetish. Maybe he likes to have a foot rub, particularly between his toes, or something like that.
just
That
try
can
different things. Just try
substitute.
different things.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm,
And I'd love to know,
mm.
what are the main considerations that a new father needs to have for the mother of his baby in regards to the changes that her body has gone through and how it affects their intimacy overall?
Well, she's very likely to have lost a lot of body confidence. She's finally had to face the fact of the flab, um, and the fact that she can't find time to really tiz herself up and look like that hottie that she used to be. Nevertheless, he should not pour on the fact that, oh, you're still my sexy girl, because that'll make her feel like sex is going to be a chore. And that's like a
It's
turn off
different.
rather than a turn on. But certainly beautiful. You are so beautiful. You are glowing. Motherhood really suits you. I love the sparkle in your eyes when you hear the noise that the baby's making when they wake up. Really pull on those sorts of words. And if you really did want to make it wonderful, just as I have often made a hypnosis birthing audio for people over the years, why don't you spend time before the birth talking about all of these things, nutting them out? I don't think there's a book written about that yet, Rachel. Maybe I should write that one.
I think you should. I think you should, absolutely. And look, and just with the experts that we speak to all the time, the more that you can plan for what happens after the arrival of the baby, whilst you're, in either one of your trimesters and in pregnancy, the better it's going to be. And I think it's just establishing expectations is one of the most important things. And every expert that we speak
Mm,
to just keeps reaffirming that communication in any way, shape, or form is one of the most
mm,
important things
mm,
and can't be
yes.
understated by any stretch of
Mm,
the imagination. So, I mean, what are
mm.
your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. You expressed that really well. I think you have to also talk about lowering your standards around the household. And what does that mean? What does that mean specifically? Vacuum once a week. Um, uh, Alternate who's going to be the cook. Um, Make casseroles in advance, and put up with less than gourmet cooking. So the more that you've made that list, agreed on that list, and then you implement the list, you're taking away an awful lot of stress.
And if the
Because
money's there, what we hear time and time
mm,
again too is even if you just invest that $50 a week in a house cleaner, that could be the best $50 you've spent just for the sake
oh
of arguments and
yes,
those types of things as well, if the
mm,
money is there for that. But if not,
yes,
definitely establishing, I think, and lowering your
mm,
standards and having just that agreement
mm,
on the household chores and what the
mm,
house is going to look and feel like, I think is a great idea.
mm,
What a
mm,
great idea that
mm,
is. Um,
yeah.
and I understand the hormones estrogen and how do I pronounce it? Progesterone, is it?
Progesterone, yeah,
Yep.
progesterone, yeah.
Are crucial to the baby's health and development during pregnancy, but they also happen to be vital to a woman's sex drive also. And the levels of these
Mm.
hormones are incredibly high during pregnancy. Are they? They would be?
Look, I'm going to have to back off from this, Rachel, because that's not my expertise.
Tease. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, it's
That's okay.
interesting that testosterone is thought to be the male hormone, though, but women have testosterone as well, and so it's much more complicated than just saying that goes up or it goes down.
So what I could see from the research is that once the baby is born, that declines dramatically back into pre-pregnancy levels. So this means that that the woman may not feel any sexual desire for a few weeks at a minimum after the birth.
Months, yeah, months, yeah.
So
At least 3
generally,
months.
yeah. So generally at that point, should a woman's body be, I guess, it would have to be fully recovered from the birth to be ready for intimacy again. And in that respect, I was just going to ask you how long that can take, but that can take any stretch of the imagination. As you said, over 12 months, that can take.
Yes,
I know.
yes. Well, I think I read a stat that 40% of couples have not had sex by the first year.
Yes.
And if that's true, that means that, there's a lot of people that have to lower their expectations out there.
Yes. And look, a woman's body goes through an incredible amount during pregnancy and childbirth, both internally and externally, sort of can leave a
Mm.
woman feeling very sensitive about the changes to her body.
Mm.
How can a man best show some tenderness to make her feel special and deeply loved? You were mentioning before, it's just in the phrasing and using different words that he may have used
Mm.
previously. Is there anything else
Mm-hmm.
that you think?
Well, what kind of hugs he's giving her? So many women have said that my man comes into the room and says, "Can I have a hug?" And his hug is boobs crutch.
Yeah.
And don't do that. And don't do any of that stuff. And also for the woman, don't touch her on the tummy. If she's getting really upset about her flabby bits, um, just really hold her in your arms tightly. Nothing reassures a woman and makes her fall in love with her man even more than being held like that,
The security,
and
just that
being told,
feeling.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and being told that, look, I'm here for you. I will protect you no matter what. Look, a lot of it doesn't even have to make sense. Just say it, guys.
Is it common also that some men can feel like they're sort of coming second best in their relationship with, the focus primarily on the baby? And that is, of course, with good reason. What are the main
Mm.
considerations that a new mother needs to have for her male partner on the flip side in regards to, sort of their needs?
Well, it's commonly believed that women are more irrational, but when a guy is feeling rejected, undesired, somewhat useless with mum and baby, he can go irrational and start to really chew it up inside and feel intensely, not needed. So don't think that your man is as tough as society makes out, and that's why he needs lots and lots of reassurance that you depend on him.
Yes, absolutely. And
Mm.
I,
Oh, look, there's one more thing I want to say about the sex stuff, though.
yeah,
This is the naughty and cheeky bit that I was telling you about before the interview.
here we go.
Remembering that lube is everybody's best friend. Well, there's it in my books. I try to be user friendly, and I talk about the 5 T words when it comes to sex. And the first one is how you think about it. So we've been talking about how to think positively. How you talk about it is the next one. So talk about it. Don't fester. Don't brood. If you're worried, if you're feeling rejected, speak up. And then there's 3 things that you can do. And if we remember that I'm using T words so we can remember them. The next one is touch. Then there's tongue, which is maybe even oral sex. And then there's thrust, which is intercourse. So let's just go back to touch. I would like to recommend that no matter how tired she is, at least once a fortnight, she gets that lube, she lays her man down, and she gives him the touch job. or the hand job. You can choose a piece of music, maybe only 4 minutes long. So you say, look, honey, I'm just going to love to please you for 4 minutes. And after that, you're on your own. You know what's going to happen then. But at least, pleasure him in that way. Make him feel like a king. Make him feel that you're thinking that he's worthwhile. And really, it's no skin off your nose, so to speak. Just make that effort and you will have a very happy man on your hands. In fact, Rachel, I say that if every man in the world was given a hand job by his woman on Tuesday nights, maybe there'd be no wars.
Well, maybe you're right.
That excludes the Taliban, because they're horrible. The Taliban, they don't care.
Okay, what's the next one?
No, that's it. That's the naughty and cheeky bits.
That's the naughty and cheeky bits done. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
following on from that, I just wanted to mention that I understand that you and your daughter Ella are the only mother-daughter sexperts in Australia and are launching a new online course called Women's Pleasure Power Gold course. So can you tell us a little bit about this? I understand you're on a mission to empower every mother and daughter to have open, honest, caring and real communication about sex throughout their lifetime. So what can you tell us about the course?
Well, I'll tell you by asking you a question. Most women, if they're asked, what did your mother talk to you or teach you about sex, will say 2 things. Nothing, or don't get pregnant. And so Ella and I are here to actually break through that and encourage women, mothers and daughters. And look at us, the mother and the daughter. I have been trained as a clinical psychologist, so I very much have always come from the head. Ella's been trained as a tantric goddess, and so she's very much from the heart. So we are now teaching women to come from the head and the heart, and to be willing to talk to their mothers or your mother figure, whoever it is in your life, and really just start talking to every woman about what are the things in the way of us all being sex goddesses. In fact, I actually thought that maybe another time you could have Ella coming on and talking about tantric sex practices for new mums and dads, because they take all the heat off it has to be intercourse. And so I'm not the expert to do that, but perhaps one day, and I'm sure that she could
write
an article and then do a
open
podcast.
to it. Absolutely.
Yes, because it's just a brilliant technology. I mean, let's face it, it's been around for 3,000 years.
So it's definitely worked.
Tantric practices, yeah.
Okay, would love to hear all
anyway,
about
the
that.
other thing is, this course is pleasurepowerexperts.com.au gold course, and it's $99 US at the moment, and that's a really special price, down from $297. But if any of your listeners can jump onto it for the next 30 days, they've got a coupon called, now
we'll have it in the show notes.
Yeah. Oh, good. Go for gold. Yeah,
okay.
In the show notes. Great. Go for gold, and you can get 15% off that $99. It's a very empowering thing. It's about women stepping into their power and owning it and wanting to be the sex goddess that's really deep down inside.
Wonderful. Dr. Jan, this has been a fantastic chat. If you were to summarize your key messages for anyone watching and listening, what would they be?
I think you touched on it before, and that is to be patient with yourselves, be patient with each other, to be honest and open in your communication, and just lighten up, have a sense of humour, and really, get in as many laughs as you can.
Thank you. And look, if anyone's got any other questions, just generally, whereabouts can they find you?
Well, I have many websites, because, I've written books about parenting as well, about sex, but you can find me on the web. Just Google Dr. Janet Hall and choose whichever one is your flavour of the moment.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Jan. I've loved this chat. Take care and look forward to another one, hopefully in the not too distant future. Until then, stay safe.
Thank you, Rachel.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye.